and welcome to our first Book and Tonic Banter author panel, New Year, New Me. We've got three fabulous authors joining us this evening, so thank you so much. Firstly, we've got Shari Lowe. She's a number one best-selling author of over 25 novels, including the current Kindle Top 20 hit, What If? The sequel, What Now?, is out tomorrow. Next, we've got Beth Morn, the best-selling author of uplifting women's fiction set in and around Sherwood Forest. Her new book, Take a Chance on Me, comes out next week. And finally, best-selling Irish novelist Emma Murray, whose novels give a humorous account of the frustrations of being a parent, which I'm sure many viewers will be able to relate to at the moment. Her new novel, The Juggle, is out on the 11th of February. So I hope you enjoy the panel. This is the first one we've done, so bear with us. And please do leave any questions in the comments below. Everyone who asks a question to the panel will be entered into a draw to win a free ebook or audiobook of each of the panel's new releases. So please don't be shy and leave some questions. So without further ado, I'm going to pass over to our wonderful authors. Hello, everyone.
Hi. Hi. Good evening.
I am going to leave you to it. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Nia.
Thanks, Nia.
Thanks, Nia.
Hi. Well, hi to Emma and Shari. It's great to be together, isn't it, for this first Boldwood author panel. I'm really excited. I'm looking forward to seeing what questions come up, and hopefully we'll be able to answer them. I'm looking forward to hearing what you two have to say, definitely.
I think it's in the old days when we used to be able to do them on a table where we would all be sitting at the same table. This is second best. This is nice.
Definitely.
Okay, so let's start then with a little icebreaker to get us going. So let's start with you, Emma. So that's okay. What are your New Year's resolutions, and have you managed to stick to them?
Goodness, I make it a point not to make any because I just think it sets me up for failure and a sense of disappointment because I'm going to forget about them and then I'm not going to do them. But this year in particular, my New Year's resolution has just been to get through every day without losing it. Homeschool is a particularly tough pill to swallow after we had a nice little hiatus at the end of last year. So it's more of a case of just getting through the day. And I think that's enough this year, rather than pile on any other resolutions on top of it. I think it's just enough to be able to cope in the middle of this madness and just hope by the end of the year we're in a different position. So that's me.
So more like a daily resolution.
Exactly. My
we won't ask if you're sticking. What about you, Shari?
I gave up on New Year's resolutions a long time ago because, like Emma, it just sets you up for disappointment, and because I never stick to anything. So again, like you, Emma, this year, I think it's just a case of like trying to take each day as it comes and just make the best of it. I'm always resolving, I'll get my word count done every day. So that kind of, that's a standard one. I always start the year by saying I'll have a better work-life balance this year. Never managed that either. So yeah, I think this year has just been a case of, take everything as it comes. I think so much is out of our control this year. So I think we just have to sort of try and get through it every day. But I gave up resolutions after 2011 when I resolved that I was going to do the London Marathon. And I knew I would have to lose 6 stone to do it. So I resolved to do it. I made a big thing of it. At the time, I wrote a newspaper column, so I put it all in there. And I thought that would kind of spur me on because, I was making it public. I thought that would make it accountable. And I ended up being the worst 8.5 hours it took me to do the marathon. Wow. I was almost last. The only people behind me were a man dressed as a donkey and a woman pushing a shopping trolley. And so after that, I just thought, nah.
well done. You did it. You've run a marathon. Wow.
8.5 hours.
Yeah. So, I'd be able to do that. I'd be the one in the trolley with the woman pushing it. So,
okay, next time I'll be pushing you, Emma. We'll manage it.
Well, fair play to you.
So yeah, I gave up after that.
What about you?
No, I don't do resolutions either. I'm a bit stubborn that I won't do them just because we're supposed to. But what I do is I always find a bit of time, a quiet afternoon, and I have like a New Year's reflection So I'll get my journal out and have a think about the year gone by and its ups and downs, and did what I hoped for happened, and was that a good thing? And then sort of move on and have a look to the year ahead and my hopes and dreams. But like you said, it's really, really hard this year, isn't it? Because we just can't think of it, we just can't picture it, can we? Either because it's too depressing or we just haven't got a clue. So yes. But in terms of writing then, what about specific writing goals for 2021? Because as authors, we're always having to be looking quite far ahead, isn't it? I think people are surprised to know how far in advance we write a book before actually it's up for sale. So Emma, should we go back to you?
Sure.
Writing goals?
Yeah, I do. I'm motivated very much by deadlines and timelines. So if I'm given a timeline, then I have to make it, you know, because I'm a bit obsessed with time, for good or for bad. The Juggle, my second book, is out on February the 11th, but I'm about 70,000 words into the third book, which won't be out until obviously next year. So I think you're right. Like, a lot of people don't realize how far in advance, you know, you end up having to write the books. So it's not in a great state, to be honest with you. You know, it's rambling, it doesn't make any sense. Like, I'm about 20.
That's fine.
Exactly, right? The first draft. And, you know, the thing for me is, like, I just like having it there. It's like, okay, I've got my work count in. Now there's got to be something there that I can make a book out of. You know what I mean? So I have to just sort of, you know, like, just to basically rewrite the whole thing. Anyway, but my goal is to get it in by the spring, and then hopefully Sarah, my brilliant editor, will not cry when she sees it, and then we'll work on it together, and then it'll, you know, the same thing will happen. I imagine, you know, if we can get there, it will be out around this time next year. So that's all going on. So a lot of work to do, but, you know, hopefully I've got something to work off.
Yeah, sounds like it's going well. Is that part of the same series as Time Out and The Juggle?
It is. Thank you for clarifying that. It is. It's the third book in the series. So Time Out is the first one. The Juggle is the second one. Got a little copy here, and the third one is the last in the series so far, anyway. So all the main characters are back and getting themselves into all sorts of drama and trouble. So they're my writing goals.
We will look forward to that. What about you, Shari? Writing goals for 2021?
So I actually just had a long chat yesterday with my editor, the incredible Caroline Ridding. And Caroline and I have actually worked together for a million years, right? Years and years and years ago, back in HarperCollins days. I think that was about 14 or 15 years ago, I'm not sure. And she's like my guardian angel. And so we had a long chat yesterday. So I just submitted my next book yesterday, which was, so that we were just counting up. So that would be three completely new books, and then one that was rewritten. My first ever book, we rewrote and re-released that. So that's all been in the last year. So I think my first resolution is to have a bit of a sleep for the next couple of days. And then we're aiming for another 3 this year. So so it's just a case of, you know, getting those together. I write full time now. So both my I always wrote full time, and but both my sons have left home. So I've got the whole empty nest thing going on, where I just sit and stare longingly at their photographs and things like that. So so that gives me a little bit more time as well to focus on work, and obviously given the current situation, we're just keeping myself busy. So yes, I think 3 books hopefully this year, and like, just wait and see how they all go. Fingers crossed. My next book's out tomorrow, which I'm really excited. So I said that we rewrote a book. So back at the tail end of last year, we brought out the first book I ever wrote, which was called What If, because in actually this week is the 20th anniversary of What If coming out. So 20 years I've been churning them out for. And so I rewrote What If, brought it up to date, and we re-released that now, maybe, I think it was about September of last year. And it was set in 1999. And one of the things I've always wondered is where all those characters in that book would be now. Sort of, you know, in What If, they were all in their late 20s. And I thought, you know, where are they now? They'll all be like me. They'll be, you know, sort of middle-aged menopausal women, and you would think that they would have their act together, but you know, no, I don't know anyone who's got their act together. You always think that when you get to sort of my age, will be organised and settled and just still as much chaos as there always was. So I decided to write a sequel with exactly the same characters, but instead of them all being 29, they're now all 49. So that comes out tomorrow, and it's called, I've got a picture as well, hang on.
Yay.
Yay! You see that? So
That sounds so much fun. That sounds so much fun.
It's one of those things about, you know, back then kind of mirrors my life a little bit, in as much as gang of pals, and I think the message in the whole book is like, your pals last forever, you know, other things come and go, but your pals kind of last forever. So I wanted just to, you know, see the same group of girlfriends 20 years later and just see how life had treated them. So that's it. As I say, it's out tomorrow. I'm really excited about it.
Oh, brilliant. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Fantastic. Yeah. So my book is out a week tomorrow. Take a Chance on Me. I've already finished the one after that, like the first draft. So hopefully that will be out sometime in the autumn. So I'm at that lovely stage. I love it when I'm just starting to think and dream about the next book. And it's the time when I can say I'm working, whatever I'm doing, if I'm walking to the shops or lying on the sofa doing nothing, or I was in bed Saturday morning and it's like, I'm working because I'm thinking and plotting and having the imaginary conversations in your head as you're getting to know the characters and all that kind of thing. So yeah, I'm hoping to get started on that before too long.
And what's it about? What's the new one about? Take a Chance on Me.
Take a Chance on Me. Oh, it's about, if you've seen the TV show Married at First Sight.
Yep.
That was where I first got the idea from. So there's a bit of science in there. I used to be a scientist a very long time ago, and I really enjoy delving back into the world of research. There's about family as well. There's 5 sisters in there and all their sort of goings on. And one thing that surprised me about this book that I wasn't really expecting is it really got me thinking about happy endings. I can remember speaking to some single friends a few years ago who said all these books in this kind of genre that I write in end with, you have to get the man, you know, the couple together, and that's the happy ending. What about a different kind of happy ending? Do we need a man to have a happy ending? No. So that was, I mean, there's 5 sisters, so I can't tell you any more details than that. But yeah, that was something I've been thinking about. It's just a little bit different to my other books. To be honest. Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Writing the whole sister dynamic, because one of my first book last year had 4 sisters in it, and I don't have any sisters, so
I don't
use my imagination. Like my girlfriends we've been, you know, all my girlfriends, we've been friends our whole lives, so you know, they're the sister role. But it was quite interesting writing this sister dynamic, and it really made me long for sisters.
Oh, no, I have no sisters, and my husband, who is Irish like Emma, has 7 brothers and no sisters.
Wow.
So yeah, you do have to think a little bit, don't you? But I love my brothers. They're awesome. So it just made me think how much I never actually wanted a sister because I thought they were so great.
I love my brothers too, but I think it was just interesting.
I've always been interested. If you've got a sister, Emma, I've known sisters that hate each other and sisters that are like best friends. It seems to be one extreme or the other quite often.
Yeah, no, I do have a sister, and we killed each other, you know, probably in our teens, which is fairly normal. And now, you know, we couldn't be closer. But I had to be really careful. It's one of the reasons that Saoirse, my main character in Time Out and The Juggle, is an only child, because I was worried that if I brought a sister into it, then my sister would draw some kind of association. or I'd be unconsciously kind of, giving some real life stuff that she could probably do without appearing in a novel. And Saoirse originally did have a sister, and we edited her out because she just didn't seem to fit, and probably because I was quite self-conscious about it as well. I didn't really have the freedom, felt I had the freedom to write about it. I do it now, though. I think it's because it was my first book. You're kind of worried that people are going to be like, oh my God, what's real and what's not real and all sorts, So yes, I did have a sister, but I haven't drawn on it yet.
You get that a lot, though, that people ask you, oh, am I in this one? Or they'll say, oh, is that kind of based on your husband?
Yes.
None of mine are based on my husband. Really not. But yeah, I mean, I think it's only natural that, sometimes I'll pick a characteristic from someone, and it will form a person, but it's not based on them. It's just a characteristic that I find really interesting about that person, or a dynamic between two people's relationships that I just think that's a really odd dynamic, that they're friends or they're married or whatever. Like, I wonder why are they friends? They don't, they don't seem to have anything in common. So what is it that binds them? So, I mean, I think things like that, we're just, writers, you're just naturally interested in people and in things. And so I tend to sort of latch on to a little thing about someone, and then it will go into the book, but I don't actually put real people. I don't ever base a character solely on a friend or a relative.
I think I just never would be so presumptuous as to know what they were thinking. I think that's...
Yeah,
where I go with that.
In non-fiction, if you're going to go down that road, or interviewing somebody, and kind of getting their thoughts and writing it that way. But I just I left siblings out for this series anyway. So see what happens.
So for those who haven't read Time Out, and we would say do if you haven't, there's probably not many people left. I know it's done really well, but for those that haven't, do you want to just give us a bit of background to The Juggle? Tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah, I mean, Time Out sort of finished on a bit of a cliffhanger, and The Juggle sort of picks up where it left off, and with a few more, twists and turns and a bit of the usual chaos and drama. So this time, Saoirse's husband David has lost his job, and she very reluctantly takes on a ghostwriting project. So she's a ghostwriter, and she hasn't had any sort of business for a while. And she's not too fond of the client, and she kind of is very reluctant about it. But then when she realizes that David's lost his job, then she kind of thinks, well, I don't have much choice, and this guy's offering me, a big chunk of cash. So she sort of signs up to it, and and finds it very difficult to extricate herself from it. In the meantime, she's juggling friendships, personal relationships, all the drama at the school gates. Her daughter Anna is now at school for the first time, so she's dealing with all the dynamics there. The Organics, super mums who are supremely judgmental, have set up a school WhatsApp group, which is even more appalling than the Facebook group they were on before. So she's dealing with the frustrations of all that. So that is the general premise, and again, it ends on a little bit of a cliffhanger, which I will not reveal tonight.
You must especially get sort of the school mums asking, sort of wondering if they're in it somewhere.
Yes. Oh, it's awful. No, it's not out until the 11th. So, I've really, really, for obvious reasons, tried to keep that side separate. But obviously, Time Out, sort of, the cat was out of the bag fairly early on. So, and I write under my maiden name, so it's not like everyone at school knew where I was. But since it's been out, I have had a few people on the street going, oh my God, oh, is that your husband? And that, no, it isn't. Okay. I mean, he's a bit of a neat freak, don't get me wrong, but, I kind of had to say, no, it's a fiction, okay, so, but of course, the early motherhood stuff is very real because, sleep deprivation and the, you're on your last nerve kind of thing, and, kind of struggling to raise your children and doing the right thing, and no one has a plan for child rearing, and just trying to feel their way through, and all that is very much autobiographical for sure. But like there's plenty in there that really, really, really is fiction. Yeah.
Oh, look, a lovely message there.
Oh, lovely, Jessica Redland. Oh, that's so lovely. I'm just reading it now. Oh, thank you, Jessica. Brilliant Boldwood author. I love her hedgehog books. I've just finished the latest one. It's just, honestly, it just gives you such a nice, warm feeling. Whenever you read, especially in this climate, when new arrivals at Hedgehog Hollow. Oh God, I hope I got that right, Jessica, and I'm sorry if I haven't. Not very good with names or titles. But those books really cheer me up in the middle of this doom and gloom. So thank you. Yeah, thank you.
I think we've got a few other people who have been saying hi as well. Jessica, Jenny Bonnet, Ian Wilfred, Sarah Bennett, Marie Rose Gurmans, Anne Williams. So there's quite a few. Hi to all of you. Thank you for popping in. I think one of the things that's interesting that you touched on there, Emma, is so Boldwood is a relatively new publisher. It's been around for a couple of years, and it's really difficult to explain the supportive network that all the authors have formed. It's unlike anything I've ever experienced before. Not to say that I haven't had lovely authors with previous publishing houses or what have you, because I definitely have. But it's a very supportive, we've all kind of, formed this wonderful kind of family thing where everyone supports each other, all the authors all support each other. And it's quite unique and quite fabulous. It really is. Have you found the same thing?
Yeah, definitely. I was with another publisher before Boldwood, and there was nothing like that. And one of the things I try and explain to people sometimes is that writing a book is a long, quite lonely process at times, isn't it? Because it's just you for months and months and months. You've got no idea. I'm sure we all have those moments, don't you, when you think, is this a complete load of rubbish? Is it boring? Am I completely lost in it? I can't even tell anymore. And the different experiences that you face, you're putting your heart and soul out there at the end of the day, aren't you, for people to judge and give you stars as to what they think of it. There's no other, well, I guess apart from the entertainment, that creative world, that doesn't happen. And to have other people around who are going through the same thing and understand that is priceless, I think, isn't it? It really, really makes it a better, more pleasurable job.
So we don't have an author WhatsApp group, but we have an author Facebook private group that we all sort of help each other. And I find it really interesting because, as I say, so this is my 20th year of writing full time. And there's a really diverse mix of writers who are, new writers, different genres. But I feel that there's a real sharing of information. So although I've been doing it forever, there's a lot of the newer things that I've, sort of, they're not on my radar at all, different ways that, things are constantly evolving. So there's constantly different ways to promote and things like that. So I'm learning from the newer writers, and then, hopefully the newer writers are picking up things from the ones who've been around a while. So I just feel like we're all kind of pitching together to help each other out. And I love it. I think it just works really well. I'm really grateful to be a part of it.
Yeah, nice comment from Sarah Bennett, who is one of those really active people on our Boldwood Facebook group, and she's great for the tips, like just even things that I would have completely forgotten about, even to do with royalties, or even all the practical stuff that and the reminders, and just sharing information, and also just sharing those dark days where you think, why are we doing this job, sort of thing. And then somebody else will pitch in, and and then you'll think, okay, all right, I feel better now because we're not alone, because you're not the only one feeling this way, So yes, that's been absolutely fantastic. Yes,
and I think it's a culture that sort of came from the top down, from Amanda and Nia and Sarah and Caroline and Ellie and everyone who works there, hoping it's, you know, everyone is got exactly the same attitudes, you know, that's is very inclusive, it's, you know, very optimistic, very supportive. I just think it's Megan as well. I just think it's wonderful that the culture that has been formed, and like I say, it's great to be a part of it.
Yeah, so Emma, you mentioned about tips and sharing with other writers. So have you got any tips for other writers on how to stay motivated with these writing goals?
Yeah, I mean, look, it's never easy to sit down and write every day. So I set myself a target of 1,000 words a day, which I can just about manage, especially when I'm trying to homeschool and, you know, everything else. And if I go beyond that, then I think, okay, you know, like I feel like, you know, quite happy with myself. And then if I don't, I'm like, well, but if I don't do anything, I'll feel a bit guilty about it, or I'm driven by fear and guilt, really, and a contract. Because once somebody hands you a bit of paper and says, right, you know, we're going to contract you for X amount of books, then, and you have to deliver by these dates, then to be honest, you don't have any choice. But if I'm not racing towards deadline, I can kind of calculate how many words I need to write per day. And then once I do that, I feel like more reassured within myself. And I don't write at weekends because I just need to give myself some headspace. And it's not my main job, so I have to do my other job as well.
Wow.
So I have to fit it all in. But one day it'll be full time, but definitely not for now. So that's it really. And, you know, don't beat yourself up about it, you know, like if you don't write every day, or it's just go for a long walk, clear your head, you know, as Beth said, the best thoughts do you come when you're, you know, lying in bed or going for a walk or in the bath or the shower or whatever, you know, like just giving yourself some to clear your mind is work in itself, you know. So, you know, don't be just sitting at a desk and putting that kind of pressure at yourself, because sometimes the best thoughts when you're just out and about, you know, and taking some time for yourself if you can. So yeah, I guess they're my main tips.
You mentioned you write at a desk. I'm just really curious. Do you all write do you both write at desks? Because I write in bed.
Wow.
I know. I wake up in the morning and I lift my laptop onto my knee. That's my commute.
Wow. I don't think my back would. I sometimes lie on the sofa, but my back has forced me more and more to a desk.
I'm the same.
I found the opposite. I get, you know, a bad back if I sit too long. So yeah, right.
It's good to change position, isn't it? Yeah. I can't write every day. I'm a foster carer, so I'm busy with that some days, and I also sometimes do other writing for businesses. So I tend to go with monthly targets, and then maybe weekly. If I've got a week where I think I can get a lot of writing done, or knowing how busy I am at the start of the week, I'll set myself a target, because I find without targets I panic and just constantly behind. So targets have really freed me up to be able to, when I'm on target, it's okay. When I'm not, that's when I have to address other things and shift some stuff around and say. So I find targets helps motivate as well. I'm a planner, I'm a plotter. So I find if I'm feeling a bit thrifty or a bit demotivated, I go back to my plan and say, what's happening next and what's the point of that? And that helps me kind of. I read somewhere once about always leave your writing for the day on a cliffhanger as well. So it's easy if you just step back in rather than at the end of a chapter and then you're kind of feeling like you're starting from scratch. What about you, Shari? You've been doing this 20 years. You must have 3 books in a year. You've got loads of motivation. What tips can you give us?
I'm a bit like Emma, driven by fear, guilt, finances, all of those things. But I think the other thing that motivates me is I once realised that if I write a character that I adore, then I'm desperate to get back and find out what's happening. So when I used to write sort of more books that were more sort of boy meets girl type thing, you know, 20 years ago, I would always have, you know, a flawed hero that I was madly in love with. And so, you know, I didn't make him do anything I wanted to, because I could just get to my desk every morning and just, you know, write this guy that I was madly in love with, but also friends. So in my books, the friendship group, I love to like dip in and see what they're doing, and I'll come up with an idea that one of them should do, so then I'm desperate to go and write that. So I think I'm very character driven as well, but I'm not. It's a really good juxtaposition because I'm not a plotter, so I have absolutely no idea what's going to happen in a chapter next, and it's terrifying. I absolutely agree with you. I've tried plotting, it just doesn't work for me. So I mean, I finished a book last night, and if you'd asked me on Friday how it was going to end, I would have told you I had absolutely no idea.
Wow.
I have no idea at all whatever is going to happen until I sit down at my desk or put my laptop onto my knee in the morning, figuratively sit at my desk, and I have no idea what I'm going to write that day. I've got no idea what's going to happen. I've got no idea who's going to do what. I once killed somebody off, and I had no idea they were going to die. So then I thought, oh my God, what am I going to do to fill that place for the rest of the book? So it's all completely spontaneous, and I just sit down full of fear and just hope that it comes, and it usually comes in one way or another, but usually completely unexpected. So it's a fairly terrifying way to do it, but I think because my books as well are quite humor based, so I found that I need to be sort of in the moment with it. If I try to plot it, it just all goes wrong. So what about you?
Wow.
What about you?
Well, the worst thing for me is a synopsis. That is just the worst, because, I kind of felt I had a couple of books in, I kind of knew where it was going, and the third one I was like, so I had to write a synopsis, and then once I got that down, I thought, okay, all right, now listen, it's nothing like the synopsis. It's just that reassurance that you have some kind of plan, but I don't tend to stick to the plan. I kind of have a vague outline of where it's going, and weirdly, this one, and I didn't have it with book 1 or book 2, but for this one, I know, for the third one, I know the end already. But I'm kind of like, a bit like you, Shari, is that I have an idea, but I'm not really entirely sure where it's going until I actually write it down. And it either works or it doesn't, like I'll either write it and then I'll go back and I'll obviously go through another draft before I submit it, poor Sarah. And I'll go through it, and I will probably just go, oh God, this is rubbish, this doesn't work, but at the time I would have thought, oh, this is really good. So you kind of end up just self-editing the whole time. But my biggest thing is, I don't know if you guys do this, but I will not look back. I will not look backwards until I've got like 80 or 90,000 words.
Wow, really?
I can't. I'll tie myself up in knots. It won't go anywhere.
I do it all the time. So the first thing I do before I write is read what I'd written the day before to get me back in the flow.
Yeah, I do that.
I'd be horrified.
I had forgotten what happened. I've totally forgotten. I forget have we revealed this? Yeah, have we done this twist? I totally forget. Wow.
And I find it's really
different.
I probably cause way more work for myself, but I'd have to do it at the end. So I'll have to go back now from day one and go
and untangle it.
Untangle it, exactly. I'd like to tie myself up. I like to overly complicate everything, and then rather than simplify it on the way, which is the opposite of really what a rational person might do.
Whatever works. Yeah, I mean, I do very, very little editing because I plan so much. I edit so much as I go along. But if I sat down with no idea what to write, it would be like these primary school stories that end up, and then it's like, and then it was all a dream because I would have no idea how else I was going to resolve anything. Well, it's really interesting, isn't it, how it all works
differently. And people always say to me, how, what's the process to write a book? And I think they think I'm being coy when I say there is no process. You find what is right for you. It just whatever is right for you. So, for me, I don't plan anything. I don't plot anything. I just see how it all works out. It has me totally in fear. Every hour of the day that I'm writing, I am totally in the fear. But it's the way that it works for me. But I think everybody writes completely differently, and I think that's one of the great things. I go back and I write. So most of my books are set, or many of them are set over a 24-hour period, and they usually start with 4 characters who don't know each other. And so I've got 4 storylines going at the same time. So many of the books are written in time chunks, like 8 till 10 in the morning, 10 till 12, 12 till 2. So they're 2-hour time chunks. So I do go back and I read what they did the hour before or the 2 hours before, just to make sure that, you know, I carry the story on through. So yes, I do go back and read what I've written the day. The last chapter I wrote about that person, or the last chapter I wrote, I do go back and read that. I find it helps me with just editing it as well. It helps me find any typos or mistakes or anything like that. So I find that quite useful. But I don't go back to the start and re-edit and all of that. I don't. I'm more seat of the pants than that. You'd think I'd be organised by now, really, wouldn't you?
That sounds perfectly reasonable. And as you say, if it works for you, then then why not? But the other thing I should probably say, just as a tip, and Beth, you kind of touched on it earlier, is that I won't leave the screen without writing a couple of lines of what I'm going to write the next day, because there's nothing worse than sitting there and not knowing where it's going. It'll be like, all right, we're here now. Where are we going to be tomorrow? And then, and then I'll write a few lines just to set me off, about what, where people are going to be and what characters are going to be there. And then I think, okay, so that's kind of my plan for the next day. And I do that. I've learned to do that every day, because it's awful to just leave, a manuscript, and then, and then coming back and going, oh, what was that going to do there?
I think another tip that has served me really well is, in my books, I finish every single chapter on a cliffhanger, every chapter, because I find that when people are reading them, they'll always say, I could put it down, but it's, I think one of the things that helps that process is by finishing every chapter on a cliffhanger. So then when I come back the next day, because I've left something on, because I do always finish, at the end of a chapter. So when I come back the next day, there was a cliffhanger there, so it just gives me something to come off of straight away. I don't usually know what's going to happen. I don't have and I wish I did, but I don't have a note of where the next chapter is going to go. And quite often it'll change overnight. So I'll finish on a cliffhanger and I'll think, oh, I wonder, will that happen? Yeah, I think that will probably happen. And then I come back and sit down the next day and I think, no, that will have something completely different. The book that I just finished yesterday, up until about 70,000 pages in, I thought one character was going to end up with another character, and they ended up completely different. Yeah. So it just the way that the cliffhangers work out, and just sometimes it sparks you off in a different direction. So I think for anybody who's writing a book, I would say one of my big tips would be end every chapter on a cliffhanger, because it not only does it fuel your writing, but it also fuels the reader when the reader's reading it to keep going to find out what happens next.
Yeah, no,
I don't. Adding in the chapters is the last thing I do. I just write one huge giant chapter. And then I go and add that. I'll have natural maybe breaks where I just put a few spaces in. Yeah. But I will say as well, as someone who plots a lot, that will always be evolving and changing as I write. I don't think you should stick rigidly, unless maybe it's, I don't know, murder mystery or something where everything has to line up. These characters just do have a mind of their own, don't they? And they surprise us always. We have to change things as we go. So a question that I get asked a lot, I'm sure you do too as an author, is where do you get your inspiration and your ideas from?
Sorry, is that for me or Sherry? Sorry.
Oh, whoever. Do you want to go?
Oh, well, my inspiration, oh my goodness. I think the inspiration for A Time Out came from a TV series called Catastrophe, starring the brilliant Sharon Horgan. And I had an idea in my head, something about motherhood, and I just wasn't quite brave enough to, put it out there. And I saw Catastrophe, and there were some fantastically well done motherhood scenes, about just one scene throws, the cot sheets out the window because the baby is puked in the cot, like just the sheer illustration of it. And I just thought, God, if she can kind of, really be very honest and upfront about what it's like, then maybe I should have a go. And that was kind of the inspiration for Time Out. And also, there's a reason that there's a section of Time Out that's set in Ireland. And I haven't been living in Ireland for 20 years, but, when you grow up somewhere, it's always going to be your home. And they're the parts that I love writing about, because it's just nice to revisit, the culture and the way everyone chats to each other and how people interact. And in the Dougal, there's also some of it is also set in Ireland. So weaving in kind of the Irish characters as well feels very much like home. So that's kind of my main inspiration. But I'm not observant as a person. So I'm not. This is what I'm sorry. I'm not going to ramble on, but I'm not very observant when it comes to like description. Like describe. You'll notice in my books that everyone's sitting at a wooden table. Like there's no like. Because I don't look around me when I'm out. I don't take in the trees and the leaves. But I think what I probably take in more is people. Like mannerisms or the way people talk to you. Almost like you're kind of looking on rather than totally being engaged. And I think that's why I like writing dialogue so much as well. But if you ask me to describe, I don't know, like in 17th century castle, and that's my worst nightmare, so but I think the people stuff is basically, in terms of drawing inspiration, it's just from the people around me, and and just kind of sucking it all in, really. So what about you, Shari?
I think there's two things. So I usually get a sort of one-liner idea. So something will come into my head and I'll think, and it literally will be a one-liner. For example, one of the books I wrote was, I had this idea of like, what if a couple had planned to split up on the eve of the millennium? Wonder where they'd be 20 years later if they stayed together or if they split up. So that it was just like a sort of random idea. So that's what happened. So I'll just, like you were saying earlier on Beth, about you were thinking, so things will just pop into my head and I'll get obsessed by an idea or a question. It's usually a question, but the other thing I really get inspired by is feelings. So again, all writers write in very different ways, and for me, I see it's not word-based for me, so I see what's happening in my head. So it's almost like the book plays out in a movie in my mind, and I can see how all my characters, I can see how they look, but I can feel what they're feeling. So sometimes I'll be, for example, one of the characters in my new book, the one that I just finished yesterday, is an elderly lady, and her whole family have passed away, as have all her friends, and she hasn't spoken to anyone from the outside world for a year, just because she has no family or friends left. And that came from, I was watching something on the news a few months ago, and there was this lovely man, and he was saying that he doesn't speak to anyone because he has no family, no friends that are still left. And it was like sucker punch to the gut, and I just thought, oh my, that must be horrific. And so then I you start feeling that, and then you think, okay, I have to write that. I have to write about someone who is in that situation. So things like that, very much. Happy things as well. I'll see something, like I see somebody who's just fallen madly in love, and I'll think, oh, I need to write that again, because I want to feel what that feels like again. And much as I love my husband, we've been married for nearly 30 years, so you forget about the whole young love, falling in love. You forget about sort of what it was like in your early 20s when you were trying to suss out your life. So I'll see something in a program, or I'll have, my friends, sort of adult children will say, oh, I don't know what to do about this, and I'm really, confused or stressed or something, and I'll just latch onto that feeling and then build a character around it. So yes, feelings are probably what inspires me most.
Yeah, I find it really hard to answer this, because I think it's everything. It's like snippet we read or a snatch of a conversation we overhear, or like you say, quite often I'll have a question like, what if? My first book, I was on holiday in a campsite in France, and I was just thinking this would be a really safe place for a woman to come if she needed to just escape from the world and, you know, just get away from everything and recover. And then I started to think, well, who is this woman and why does she need to escape and how can she just leave her life behind? And it's almost full of unpicking the threads, isn't it? I think something that's so important for writers is that we just have to give ourselves time to think and wonder and ponder, and isn't it, and think about this stuff. Yes, I'm noticing that time is ticking on. We've had a couple of questions come through from people. Shall we? So Claire asked on Twitter, what's the best book you've ever read? I have an answer to this.
Go.
I hate this question, don't you? Or it's real. How can you pick one? It's like picking one flavour of ice cream or something. It's impossible. But I was thinking one of the things that made me really decide I wanted to write was I absolutely loved reading my kids' stories when they're all adults now, but when they were little, I loved reading them stories. And I think one of my favourite stories to read my kids was My Naughty Little Sister at the Party. I must have read hundreds of times and I never once grew tired of it. And I can't say for any adult book I've read it that many times and loved it that much many times. So that, I have to say, is my best book. So either of you, can you narrow it down to one?
I will say my favorite. I don't ever read a book twice. Never ever. But the only book that I read every couple of years, I go and pick them back up again, and it's a really odd one. It's James Clavell's Taipan. So I remember a million years ago, I read Taipan, Noble House, Shogun, the James Clavell Asian series, and at the time, it was just before I went to live in Hong Kong. I lived there for a couple of years, and but I just thought that these books are like epic adventure type books. It's, you know, they have no relation to any genre that I've ever written in, and I was just captivated by the whole world in these books. I just adore them. So every couple of years, I'll go back and I reread Taipan, Noble House, and it's weird. I think it's also a bit of a kind of anchor, because I remember reading them, the first time I think I read them I was maybe 16 or 17, so it's really interesting to see how different, the differences in my interpretation of them as I age as well. So those would be my favorite books. I'll get other books that, just now my favorite book of the last year was probably Michelle Obama's Becoming. In non-fiction, there's a book by a lady called Glennon Doyle called Untamed that I'm a bit obsessed by. Other books will, I'll fall in love with other books as well, but that's my mainstay, my lifelong mainstay, I would say, would be James Clavell's Asian series of books. What about you, Emma?
Oh, well, before Beth mentioned their favourite childhood book, I probably would have been able to tell you that this is a terrible question, and it's like, picking, your favourite child. But at the moment, but thank you, Beth, because I actually did kind of think, okay, I've got so many favourite books, and it's so hard to pick one. But actually, as a child, I was obsessed with Adrian Mole, Sue Townsend, that series, and I just loved, but I didn't get half the humour. I was reading them when I was like 9 or 10, which is totally inappropriate.
I did the same. It's only later on, reading years later, I was like, that's what that meant.
Yeah, exactly. It's coming off the end of the ruler. Didn't know what that meant. There's some really kind of jarring stuff in there. But of course, my sister had them, and she's 3 years older than me. And so of course, I just read whatever she's reading, And she did say to my mum, she goes like, I don't think Emma should be reading those books. Like, I think she's a bit young. My mum was like, should be grand, so I read them, but I didn't get the references, but the humour in them and just the cleverness and the wit. For me, I've read and reread and reread those books, and they just offered even more comedy and insights, when you're a teenager and you're kind of a bit more clued in or whatever. And I definitely think that they have influenced some of my writing. Just, you know, the comedy aspect of it, and, you know, it's just the way she kind of approaches certain situations. I think she's absolutely fantastic. So so I'm going to put Adrian Mole down as probably one of my most influential reads when I was younger. So thank you, Beth, for the inspiration.
Thank you. We got there in the end. That's great.
I did.
So another question from Helen. She says, this is on a bit of a different topic. What was your path to publication, and was it short or long?
Okay, I'll go first on that one. So mine was incredibly lucky, I would say. I didn't write anything until I was 30, not a thing. So I didn't go to university. I didn't study creative writing. I always wanted to be a writer. You know, I would lie in bed when I was 14 or 15 reading Jackie Collins books and think this is what I want to do with my life. But, you know, I had to support myself. So, you know, just didn't write at all. And I used to frequently moan about it. And I used to say to my husband, I just want to be a writer. And he would say, well, maybe write something then. And which was very good advice. And I hate it when he's right. So I was 30 and I had this idea for a book, and I just thought, I'm going to do it. I had a completely different job. I was working in sales after running nightclubs for many years. And so over the next couple of weeks, I wrote the first 10,000 words of my first book, which was What If it was called, and the one that we just re-released last year. And I sent it away to a few agents, and a few publishers. One agent agreed to take me on the strength of the 10,000 words. I had no idea what I was doing. And as I say, I'd written them at night over the space of a couple of weeks. And then she sort of submitted out the 10,000 words in a synopsis and to lots of publishers. And I was just so lucky. It landed on the right desk at the right time. And I get an offer of a book deal on the strength of that. And then the publisher said to me, and could you send me the rest of the book? And so they made the offer. And I said, could you send me the rest of the book? And I said, yep, no, not a problem at all. Just, you know, I'll need a couple of weeks just to tweak it, make sure it's fine. And I come off the phone and I'm like, nothing else. So I had to take 2 weeks off my day job and spent 2 weeks writing the rest of this book, like 8,000 words a day, writing the rest of this book, and sent it off. And it was What If? Over the years, though, I think it's important to say, so I've been with several publishers. I've had really good experiences. I've had experiences that weren't great. I've had a million rejections. I've been out of contract. I've been in contract. It's not like, you know, once you get a book deal, it's a seamless process. It doesn't work like that. And so I think one thing I would say to MD who was trying to get published is, you know, don't give up on the rejections, because honestly, I have piles and piles of them. And even, you know, when I was quite far into my career and I'd written 10 or 12 books, and, you know, I would still get rejections if, you know, when I was sort of changing, going between publishers and things like that. So I remember after my third book, everybody fired me. Everybody hated my third book. And so my agent didn't want to represent it. The publisher I was with didn't want to publish it. And I really liked it, but, you know, everybody fired me. So I was 3 books in and I was thinking, well, that was good while it lasted. And then somebody random picked that book up and loved it. And that started a whole new process. So it's just all subjective. You just have to thick skin, go with rejections, just keep on going. But yes, so I was one of those sort of really lucky. My first ever 10,000 words landed on the right desk.
That's like the dream story, isn't it? We're always told you have to have a finished book before you send it anywhere. That was really great.
I think that's probably more common now. But this, as I say, this was 20 years ago, and it was literally the first 10,000 words I'd ever written in my life. I had never, you know, I left school at 16. I had never, ever written a thing. So it was like, you know, the first 10,000 words I'd ever written in my life. So I was just really lucky. And even when we were bringing that book out last year, it was just so lovely to revisit that. You know, it was so lovely to go back and read and see if it sort of stood the test of time. So yeah, so that was my story. What about yours, Emma? How were
Yeah, I mean, there are some similarities, but I think mine is more heartbreak. I know. No, my one, it was a bit of a windy road, really. Like you, Sherry, and probably Beth, I've always wanted to be a writer, but I started off writing. I started off in banking, and then I ended up going into ghostwriting, and then co-authoring academic textbooks. So I was very much in the non-fiction space, you know. So I'd had experience working for non-fiction publishers, but not, you know, fiction. And quite frankly, I just didn't really have the nerve to write fiction because, you know, heart and soul on a plate for people to trample on. So I kind of veered away from that for quite a while. But I had said, when everyone said to me, "Oh, no, when's your novel going to come out?" I would say I'll write something in my 40s. So I turned 40 and I thought, right, this is it, right? I have to do something. So I wrote 10,000 words of Time Out, and I sent it off to a literary agency. Like, I hadn't a clue, right? Just sent it off, did a synopsis. And I was used to doing synopses for non-fiction publishers. So, you know, I kind of had an idea of what to do. So I've sent that off, and she came back within, like, an agent came back within about 3 days, which is unheard of, and said, I'll never forget it. She said, "I really like what I've seen so far. Can I see some more?" And I was like, oh, like, my first tears. I was like, I don't believe it. Like, because it was real validation. You know, I think if she'd come back and said, "Listen, love, don't give up your day job," like, I probably would have just abandoned it, you know, because I was just very nervous about it. Anyway. So she said, so she really encouraged me, and I thought, oh my goodness, I'm going to have to finish it now. Oh my God, like you, Sherry, you know, I wasn't offered a contract in the first 10,000 words. But anyway, so I spent another 3 months writing it, and I sent it back in, and I was really nervous about it. And she took about 3 months to come back to me. And then she came back and just, no. And I was like, what?
no?
Oh,
Rejected. And I was honestly, I was in Ireland at the time for the summer, and I was absolutely gutted. And I just
especially 3 months. Oh my goodness.
Oh, yeah. But at the end of the day, like, I mean, in hindsight, at least now I had a manuscript. You know, I had something that people could work with. I just didn't have an agent. So a friend of mine in Ireland used to be an agent. So she said, all right, like, let me have a look at it. And then she gave me some notes, and she was amazing. And then she said, come on, like, go, like, put it out there again. Like, there are other agents and blah, blah, blah. So I said, fair enough. So in the meantime, this is a great tip for anybody who's looking for a connection in the industry, but like, just any opportunity that you see, do take it, because it really does depend on, you know, your network and, you know, meeting other authors. And there's a girl locally, a local author, who posted something on Facebook, and she was writing a novel. And she was she was doing some research about, like, teenagers, and she only had young kids, so she needed a bit more advice about the teen side of things. So she said, like, she was asking our local Facebook group, you know, for information. And I thought, oh, she's a local author and she's a novelist. And, you know, so I dropped her a note and I said, look, you know, any chance for coffee? And we met up, and she was like 3 books in, and she told me that her agent was interested in something like kind of comic fiction, women's writing, and she said, why did you send it to my agent? And I was like, okay, right. So I sent it to my agent, or to her agent, now my agent, who picked it up, and thank God. And then she sent it, like you, Sherry, you know, she sent it out to loads of different publishers, loads of rejections, got very close with a couple of the bigger ones, but nobody seemed to commit. And I was just very tired at that point of just waiting and waiting and waiting, and patience isn't exactly a strength. And then suddenly, out of the blue, she said that Boldwood were interested, and I had a chat with Sarah Witherden, my amazing editor, for an hour, and got on like house on fire, and I just thought, this is it. And, you know, I signed. But that process from start to finish, and this is important for anyone that thinks that these are all overnight, you know, successes.
No. Yeah.
I mean, I started writing Time Out end of 2016, and I signed at Boldwood summer of 2019. Actually, I was in Ireland then as well, which is actually quite a nice a nice way to end it. And then the book came out in May. Time Out came out in May 2020. So if you consider that timeline, that's about 3 years. So it's definitely not an easy road, but it is about just taking every opportunity you can and talking to other people and letting everyone that that you're writing a book, because that's how it all works out. So Beth, what about you?
Yeah, well, I'd never thought about being a writer. I was a scientist. I did cancer research, my first job. I did 10 years teaching antenatal classes, which was a lovely job because I love babies. I was like the woman in Time Out with her little antenatal class. And it was only then I kind of got to my mid-30s and had a bit of a career crisis. And I thought, I don't want to do this anymore. This isn't my passion. Well, what is my passion? And spent 3 weeks crying and feeling very grumpy. And a couple of people said to me, you should write a book. And I used to do Thought for the Day on local BBC radio. So initially I thought, well, I'll put all my thoughts together in a nice little, the little book of calm and things like that were about at the time. And then I just got this idea for a children's book, actually. And I thought, I think I'm going to give it a go. And by the end of the first day, I was sold. I was like a woman obsessed. I couldn't stop writing, and that got me an agent. I didn't get published. She then stopped being an agent to have a family. So I then wrote, but I'm going to write an adult book now. I've had my practice. I write an adult book, and I sent it to one publisher because I thought, I want that publisher. I don't want anyone else. I just want them. And they said yes. So that I was so naive. I had no idea how many people were trying to get published and write books. I was very, very naive about that. So that was amazing. I then had, like you, Shari, after I'd had 3 books published with that publisher, I thought it's time for a change now. I need something different. And I then had a couple of years. I then got myself my wonderful agent, and she then started sending out the book, which is now Christmas Every Day, and I got my share of rejections then. Yeah. So it's great having an agent because they can say no. I was like, should I change it all after every rejection? She's like, no, it's all right, stay with it. And yeah, I'm glad that I did. So it's just after 7. I think we need to wind up now, but we've had one more question. I wonder if we can end with this because it's only 3 words.
Okay.
If you could describe your writing in 3 words, what would they be?
Ooh.
I'm not going first.
Beth, have you got your 3 words?
Well, Boldwood usually describe my books as inspirational, so maybe that would be one.
Yeah. Hang on, let me look at my book cover. Okay, no, I haven't now yet. I'm pinching off Boldwood's words.
I think a big focus of my books is female friendships.
Yeah.
That's female friendships. That's 3. That's me. I'm done. Inspirational female friendships. There you go.
Okay, so I would probably
go on. Sorry.
Go with similar. It's 6 words, but it's how Boldwood describe my books, and they always say real laughter, real tears, real life. So that's probably mine. They're again, my books. The core of my books are always female friendships. They're always the core of the book. But I like to try and. My books are not so much they're not so much like the fantasy, happy anything. They tend to be kind of anchored in real life. So yeah, real laughter, real tears, real life. That's how Bold would describe them.
I think that's probably true for all of us, isn't it?
Yes.
Emma, if you've got your 3.
Yeah, I'm looking at the back of the juggle here now. So funny, relatable, and warm. So I'm going to go with that. I'm going to go with those 3 words. Myself. So thank you, Boldwood.
Right. For any other questions, we will put them up because we run out of time, and we will go on the Boldwood Facebook page, Book and Tonic, and we'll answer those over the next couple of days, won't we?
Yeah.
There will be another author panel with Boldwood next month, so we can look forward to that. It won't be us; it'll be 3 different authors. But just thank you ever so much to everyone who's been listening, commenting, joining in. We really appreciate that. It's been lovely to have you join us, and lovely to join you, Emma and Shari, as well. So have you got any final words, or are we going to leave it there?
No, I just think thank you. Same. Thank you to Boldwood. Thank you to all the other brilliant Boldwood authors. And just thank you to everyone who picks up our books. I mean, I think just now, especially, you know, given the world, it's just amazing that people are reading our books and getting in touch. And so just thank you to everyone who allows us to do what we do.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I echo everything that Beth and Shari have said. Thank you so much for supporting all the authors, and you know, especially in this climate where it's not easy for anybody at the moment, no matter what business you're in. So really appreciate everybody who's going out and buying our books and sending gorgeous Instagram messages and, you know, posts on Twitter and Facebook, and just really we really appreciate all your support.